I think it's hard to work out. What I find is that it's quite difficult to keep track of who's making which vaccine where. And it's like a lot of other things that we're familiar with, that supply chains can be really complicated. But what I would expect to see is that we will see hopefully more of the RNA vaccines being made in more different sites. Because that's a relatively new manufacturing process. But in theory, it's something that we can do at a much larger scale.
And to your point about the confusion, will AstraZeneca continue to be a part of the vaccine equation in the UK?
So my understanding is it will be, but remember that we've completed the sort of first wave of vaccinations, and so we're now moving into a phase of booster doses, and we've got lots of data now. We know how to mix and match vaccines, so I think that I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, who's going to use which type, but hopefully what we need though is not just as much vaccine to be manufactured, but we need to sort out the distribution of vaccines.
Yeah, that is such an important point, because we're seeing very strong take-up in Australia at the moment as we're racing to get out of lockdowns. In the UK, the US has sort of reached a plateau. But there are so many countries globally that are at such low levels, largely because of lack of supply.
Exactly. And as I say, it's a very sort of opaque business that vaccines are made in different places with different multinational companies, and the distribution network is not always straightforward. And of course, we've got to remember it's not just about the supply. In some countries, it's the logistics, it's the cold storage, things like that as well. So it's never that straightforward.
How difficult is it to set up production? For example, Moderna is talking about starting production in Africa. Is that an easy thing to scale up?
So it's a good thing to ask, and the thing to remember about vaccines is, as you might expect for a complex medicine, they're not just medicines, they're complex medicines. The factories are, very complicated, the way that they run, and also there's a lot of fine detail that has to be got right. So the people operating the plant need to be highly trained. What that means is it's very difficult to transfer manufacture from one factory to another, which is why there's these long delays in terms of making vaccine manufacturing more accessible to developing countries and different parts of the world. It's just a really hard thing to do, which means that transferring the factories is not trivial.
So it's better, do you think, for Moderna to keep control of the process? Some say they should be sharing. Is it better for them to keep control?
It's complicated because it's not just about sharing the details, it's about having the capability and the capacity. So, for example, Moderna itself may not be manufacturing the majority of its vaccine. It may be contracting it to manufacturing companies. And so actually the people doing the manufacturing are in a different business. It gets really, really complicated. What we will expect to see is, more sharing and more training and more education. But of course, by the time that happens, it will be far too late to have an impact on the current pandemic.
You're talking about the data coming in for the booster shots, and this is becoming quite critical with some countries moving towards that. The US is really going to be making decisions quite soon. How do we know what the best combinations are going to be, particularly for many of us who've had the AstraZeneca, and that's going to be phased out?
Yeah, so the good news is that we're getting plenty of data now showing that combination of doses and also the combination of vaccination with natural infection give you boosts of immunity, and the boosted immunity correlates with better protection. So I think we understand the system quite well now, and so I think we don't have any worries now about incompatibility. Of course, the other thing is safety. Again, we've got plenty of data showing the safety of different combinations of vaccines. So I think it's very much a sort of mix and match program from now onwards.
And just finally, Al, the WHO is saying this is the last opportunity for us to really try and get to the bottom of the origins of COVID. But it really doesn't seem as if the key players are ever going to cooperate, does it?
So I think that it's a really difficult problem to work out, and you have to think about what would be the evidence that would help you to decide in one way or another. What we do know is, of course, lab security is incredibly important. We've always known that. We also know that transmission of different viruses from animals to humans is a massive risk. It always has been, and it will continue to be. Whether we ever get to find out the vital information that will prove one way or another, I'm doubtful that we'll get that information.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's looking. Good to talk, Alex. Thanks so much.